Hello everyone, thank you for joining us today for Reap the Benefits of Personalization presented by LexNet 701. My name is Christy Bookman and I'll be presenting our short webinar today. We appreciate you taking time out of your day and perhaps even your lunch hour to join us. Currently we have all attendees muted and we'll continue to do so throughout the presentation. So if you have any questions, we definitely want to receive them and we'll be watching for them to answer. Please type your questions using the GoToWebinar console over on the right of your screen, and we will be watching for them as we go along and answer them at the end of our presentation. We have several different attendees today from all different sizes of universities, and I'm sure that you have all different types of programs as well, so hopefully everyone will see something that they can get some tips on. So without any further announcements, let's jump in and get started. Frank Romano and David Browdy did a study that's very well known in the marketing world and very referenced. The study focused on a comparison of the response rates between various versions of a marketing mailer. So as a baseline, the study found that a black and white mailer, a letter perhaps, received a response rate of 0.46%. Probably not what any of us is looking for a response rate. So to compare, they then added the recipient's name to that black and white mailer to see what impact the name would have on the piece. They learned that by simply adding the recipient's name to a black and white mailer would yield a 44% higher response rate than that of the static black and white. So next they wanted to measure the impact of color. Romano and Browdy created the same static mailer, and perhaps it was that same letter, and printed it in color. Nothing else changed. When compared to the same black-only piece, the response rate increased by 45%. Now Browdy and Romano repeated the test using the color mailer, but they added the recipient's name just as they had with the black only. And the increase over the static black and white mailer that was used as the base was 135%. So they're definitely making good progress and giving us good information to work from. This next test is the one that we're going to focus on today. Romano and Browdy took that color mailer that included the recipient's name, and they then incorporated information that was relevant to the recipient, to each individual recipient. And we'll look at some specific examples in the next few slides. When compared to that original black-only mailer that was static, the increase in response rates was 500%. Now, I would imagine that most of you are no longer using static black and white marketing communications for mailing. However, are you reaping the true benefits of personalization, not only in your printed materials, but also in your e-marketing? And what does personalization mean to you or your organization? Is this personalization? We have clients, when we begin to talk with them, that they say, of course we personalize, we put the name on it. Well, in some organizations, that is considered personalization. At LexNet 701, though, we wouldn't consider that personalization, and we definitely wouldn't consider it effective personalization. Now here's an example that you've likely seen that incorporates some basic personalization. The front of this self-mailer included information that was relevant to our recipient in their current position and for their current responsibilities. Your budget's been cut, you're going to have cuts in staff, and we need to raise more money. Now, which of us have not heard that recently? So it was relevant. And then, of course, we used the recipient's name as a part of the text message that was used as the artwork that was the focus of this particular card and the design. On the inside of the self-mailer, the recipient's name was used again to personalize the message. In addition, we incorporated a personalized URL or personalized landing page for the marketing piece. And then we also incorporated a personalized QR code. And we'll discuss those in detail in just a few minutes. University foundations generally have a bit of an advantage in that you have a good deal of information that you already know about those records in your database. Understanding the elements of data that you know and how to effectively incorporate those elements into increased response rates is your challenge. And many universities have research, donor research, and staffs that specifically address those issues. If you're in the enrollment or student recruitment areas of the college or university, you may know less about your audience. However, you too have ways of obtaining meaningful information that will capture the attention of those that are interested in attending your institution. And when you say the statement, "You have a huge advantage," you may think that we're crazy. Of course, there are those challenges. Recent graduates, for example, can be a challenge. The address you have on file may be the one that they used from their home when they applied for admission the summer before their senior year of high school. Maybe those parents have moved in the last 5 years, and that student may not even live in the same city today. Clearly, there are still challenges. But think about the alumni database at your university that's used for annual giving or scholarship campaigns. Consider the amount of information that you already know about the individuals in your database. You know when they graduated, you know which college they graduated from, you likely know their giving history, and you may know a lot more. If you don't know everything that you'd like to know about those in your database, don't be discouraged. It can be as simple as just asking. You know, if you're sitting in your fall campaign strategy session and year after year someone says, "If we just knew what the preference of our potential donors is for X," you need to ask. It's obviously something that can be valuable to make your piece relevant to your recipient. According to the Urban Institute, in direct marketing, practitioners view large numbers of prospects or donors through the lens of statistics. And that's very true. Fundraising teaches us how to view prospects or donors as individuals with unique values, beliefs, and preferences. To learn more about your donors' preferences, you have to find out by asking, not by assuming. Ask donors using a short survey of 2 to 3 questions that takes less than 3 minutes to complete. You can ask using a personalized URL on your website, through a short email survey, or have callers ask when they're doing the telefund campaign. And don't ignore the fact that the message in which they'd like to be contacted is an important preference. For example, if a responder states that she'd like to be contacted by phone between the hours of 7 and 10, you now know her preference. But if you ask, you have to be prepared to follow through. Don't call her at noon if she wants to be called in the evening. So knowing how your donors and prospects would like to be contacted, again, is just another way of personalizing their experience with you. Now here's another example that's familiar. For this postcard that was mailed by LexNet 701, we stated that one of the images on the front of the card could increase response rates by 20% with 50 to 54-year-old donors. So which one is it? Is it the photo on the left of students in the classroom? Is it the one in the center with a student using what is definitely an antiquated computer system? Or is it the third photo from the entrance to the university? The key to answering this question is looking at the recipient. The photo that could generate a 20% higher response rate for donors that are 50 to 54 years old is the second photo. To take this a step further, this would be an ideal image to use for a marketing piece when mailing to a 50 to 54-year-old woman who graduated from the School of Business in 1980. If the recipient was a male student from the School of Business in 1980, the photo would be the same except for the fact that the student would be male. If the recipient graduated from the College of Education in 1980, the photo would be representative of the teaching school instead of the business school in the early 80s. You'll notice that the personalization of the photo, it's subtle. It's obviously not a photo of that individual from their days at the college. However, it would be relevant to the recipient and will capture their attention. Now, on the back side of the same postcard, we have added personalization as well. So one of the keys to the successful use of personalization is that the personalization can't be invasive. Like we just talked about, it has to be subtle. The last thing you want to do is be so obvious with your personalization that it scares your recipient. Clearly, you wouldn't want to put their social security number or the grade that they received in sophomore biology. Those wouldn't be things that you'd want to add to their marketing piece. However, information that is relevant can be powerful. And personalization shouldn't be limited to only print. Like we talked about, it could be the method in which they're contacted. Email marketing should also follow the same personalization philosophy. And printed marketing materials can also bridge to personalization on the web. And the backside of the postcard is a good example of that. We, of course, incorporated the user's name, the recipient's name, and then it also incorporates a personalized landing page. And that page was accessible through the personalized URL or through or the web address that was printed on the back of the card here, or it could be accessed through the QR code. I think everyone is probably familiar with QR codes, but if not, a QR code is a barcode that can be scanned and read by smartphones that allow the user to go straight to the landing page from their mobile device. The key is, if you're going to incorporate QR codes into your marketing piece, you have to make sure that the page that you're taking the user to is mobile compatible. And that's one of the biggest mistakes made with QR codes today. The QR code is on there, it's fun, it's new, it's something that people want to play around a little bit with. And your user downloads a QR code reader, or there's one already installed on their phone, and they snap the code, and the page that they're taking to isn't mobile compatible. Well, that really kind of kills the experience for the user. So you just want to make sure that you're staying consistent. By using a mobile tool, you land on a mobile site. Now, the landing page that you land on, there's two different types of landing pages. One is a generic URL, and that basically is the equivalent of your static mailer back in the study. There's nothing specific about the recipient on a generic landing page. Now, personalized URL, or PURL as they're called, is just that, it's personalized. The name of the recipient along with images that are relevant to the individual recipient should be used. And the same response rate increases occur as were reported in the Romano-Braudy study for print. More than 80% of individuals will leave a landing page within 0 to 8 seconds. 80%. They may leave because they don't like the site design or they don't like the offer, but they may also leave because they don't relate to the landing page. It's not relevant to them. It doesn't capture their attention. To truly reap the benefits of personalization, you need to carry it through your entire campaign, not just your printed piece. So let's take a look at an example that we produced for a university for a fundraising campaign. This self-mailer was developed for the Emporia State University Foundation. It was mailed to a large group of their alumni base. So the entire database was evaluated to determine what information known about the individuals in the database could be most effectively used to increase response rates. So going back to that data, several segments of users were carved out to construct the campaign. And the segments included 4 things. One segmentation tool that was used was using the decade in which recipients graduated. The second was the college from which the recipient graduated, and the third was their previous giving history. And the fourth area of personalization was their name. So it was a decade of graduation, college from which the recipient graduated, and their previous giving history. So first, the recipient's name was incorporated into the piece, and in this case it was used in the headline. In other pieces it's used throughout. In this case they just used it here and then in the reply mechanism. Second, the self-mailer was designed for several different decades. The photo strip on the left side of the piece, that image was actually pulled in based on the fact that Jeff graduated in the decade of the 80s. The copy in the second paragraph of the self-mailer was also populated based on the decade of graduation. It's safe to say clothes and hair have changed. Feather bangs, a great turtleneck, and even that corduroy blazer aren't really the hip threads they once were. If this piece were mailing to someone that graduated in the 60s, the paragraph would have different copy. So the text and images used were fun, and they brought the recipient back to their days at ESU. Next, the letter itself was signed, and that's a digital signature, was signed by a representative from the college that the recipient graduated from. Signatures were populated into the piece based on the recipient's degree from the School of Business or the Teachers College, etc. Whatever school they graduated from, that was which signer signed their letter. Now, the fourth element was the recipient's prior giving history. A suggested ask amount was incorporated into the reply form based on the recipient's prior gift plus a slight increase. So, for example, if the recipient gave $50 last year, the suggested gift amount pre-printed on the form was $60. In all cases, the recipient would have the ability to make a gift in amount different than what was suggested, but a suggestion was made for each individual, and it was slightly more than what they had given in the past. Just as a rule of thumb, always make sure to pre-fill as much as possible for your recipient, whether it's for a paper reply form or an electronic web form. Allow the user to update their information or make changes, but make the number of steps that they need to complete in order to reply as few and as easy as possible. Not only do they appreciate the fact that they don't have to write everything in or type everything in, they will also be more inclined to respond. So that will help your response rates as well. The average consumer, just to get some perspective, the average consumer is exposed to 5,980 marketing messages daily. On average, 52 of those, almost 6,000, get noticed. And of those 52, only 4 are really paid attention to. So how do you make sure that your message is one of the 4 that's read and paid attention to? And when we talk about 6,000 marketing messages daily, we're talking about radio advertisements, billboards, newspaper ads, direct marketing, emails, text messages. The list goes on, and as we continue to add new ways to communicate with people, the number of messages will just increase as well. So you really need to work hard to make the message relevant to your recipient to get the desired outcome. You do have an advantage. You have demographic information about your recipients, and they have an affiliation with and a fondness for your institution. Now you just need to add the personalization to reap the rewards and increase the number of gifts, the amount of those gifts, and the engagement that you have with your audience. I want to get to questions, but just quickly I want to tell you a little bit about LexNet 701. The LexNet Corporation has been a leading marketing solutions provider for over 20 years. And we have been working with a number of schools throughout the U.S. and have found that effectively marketing for universities can be a challenge for some. Whether you have well-established marketing departments or whether you're really struggling to kind of find out where you fit, we worked with universities across the board. So we created a website dedicated to higher education professionals that you can use as a resource for any marketing questions or to get new information. There are sections on the site related to fundraising, attracting new students, and more. And every day new articles and information are added to the site in one convenient location. You'll want to check out the Resource Center on the LexNet 701 website. And if you go to www.lexnet701.com and click over here on the left side of the screen for success stories, you'll be able to access case studies, expert interviews, industry reports, white papers, much more. You don't need to register to check out the site. It's just there for you to use and to share. And one of the reports that's available on the Resource Center right now is one-to-one personalized printing best practices. And this information in the Resource Center is updated once a month. And then, like we said, articles and information industry-wide is updated every single day. We'd also love to have you join us on Facebook, Twitter, and on LinkedIn. And there's the one-to-one personalized printing best practices, and you just go in and put in your information and we'll email it right to you. Here's my contact information at LexNet 701. You can also contact Jan Lerner at that same number, 800-767-1735. We're here to help and answer any questions that you might have. LexNet 701 is a one-stop shop for your marketing needs, and we really hope that you are able to utilize the online resources that we've created on the site. And then when you have questions, just let us know. So let's get to just a couple of questions before we run out of time. We intentionally set the webinars for 30 minutes so that we can get a lot of information to in a quick amount of time and not take a lot of time out of your day. So if you have any questions, please type them into your the GoToWebinar console, and I will answer those, and we'll go ahead and go through the questions that we've received. So let me just take a look quick. All right. First question is this: we have tried to use personalization, but it always seems that the variable printing process is too expensive. How do we justify the additional expense? That's a great question, and honestly, it's one that we speak to very often. We understand that your budgets are tight, and we understand that you're having to do more with less. You have fewer resources, and you still need to raise money. First, let me just say digital print is more expensive than a traditional offset or litho print job in many cases. There is a break-even point for traditional printing jobs, at which point variable data printing may not make sense. But what you're doing is likely not a traditional print job. You're not doing transactional printing. You're not doing statements that are the same for every person. You're asking for your friends of your university to send you money. You want them to enroll their student. You want them to attend an alumni function. You need to engage them and compel them to take the action that you're asking them to take. In traditional print, you're taught to look at a cost per piece. And we encourage our clients in higher education to look at the cost per response or the cost per donation. What's a new student worth to your university? What is a donation worth to your foundation? In many cases, the institutions that we've worked with have actually decreased the number of individuals that they're mailing to for their annual campaigns. They don't just send out a plain package, a static mailer to everyone. What they're doing is mailing to those individuals that are most inclined to give, and they're reaching them through personalized campaigns that generate results. They're able to mail a better piece to fewer people and are netting more revenue. A great way to get started is to do an A/B test. Just as Romano and Browdy did, mail a specific quantity of static mailers, or quote, what we've always done mailers, and then mail a specific quantity of highly personalized, highly targeted mailers, and see which does better. See which returns a higher return on investment. A/B testing is a great way to see if you're ready to go to the next level with personalization and to prove those results, whether it be to you or people above you who you need to justify to. Next question. In the example that you showed for the university that had the information broken out by decade, which I think that's the Emporia State Unit example, it looks like a lot more work to set up all the different forms for the variations. Is that expensive, and how much more time do we need to allow? So let's just go back quickly and take a look at that piece. It's actually much easier than it appears. And that's the beauty of variable data printing, and that's how we can economically and effectively allow you to do the personalization. So in this situation, we had one form. There was just one form that had to be set up. Graduates for this mailing were from the decades of the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and then graduates from 2000 to 2009. So that's 6 different options for decades. So the photo strip and the paragraph here, there were 6 different possibilities of what they could be. So as the self-mailers were printed, the code that was written by our LexNet 701 programmers pulled the correct photo strip image, the correct variable paragraph, the correct signature, the correct ask amount, and the correct name. So those elements were pulled from the database and then used to create the final letters as they went through the printer. We have a staff of programmers here, and they're very good at what they do, and they help us do the composition, create the composition process for the pieces. During our quality control review process, we look at all possible combinations. We look at longest names, shortest names. There's just a whole process that we go through to make sure that everything's set up correctly and that the information that was pulled in is the correct information. We also give our clients the opportunity to do that same review on their end before the whole job is sent to our printers. So by utilizing the personalization, it really doesn't take a lot more time. I mean, 6 sets of images needed to be set up and 6 paragraphs needed to be set up. But other than that, the form itself is just the same, just utilizing the 6 different options. And do we have any other questions? Those were the 2 that we've received. If you have questions and you just don't choose to ask them right now, again, please feel free to contact us, contact Jan Lerner or myself, and we'll be happy to provide any answers that we can. And check out the Resource Center. There's lots of great things there that you are welcome to use. I'd like to thank you again for joining us today. Please note that we will be having a new LexNet 701 webinar each month, and announcements will be made on our Facebook page, through LinkedIn, and through Twitter. So you're also welcome to check the site, and we'll be updating information about future webinars there as well. So thank you again for joining us. Have a great afternoon, and we hope you've enjoyed our presentation.